from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up today on Ag Day in North Dakota, no rain for grain.
It's worth more in the bale than in the bin this year.
The ag barometer creeps higher, all due to farmers' positive sentiments towards the ag economy. In analysis.
And that's how we got September KC or Minneapolis wheat up to what we call a technical wave 4. That's kind of like the brick wall of China, and it stopped the market like an 8-day clock.
How winter weather is making the potato crop in Idaho and putting a shelf life on a delicious product, a way to better bacon.
Ag Day, brought to you by the dependable, longest-lasting Chevy Silverado.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Gibbon, in for Clinton Griffiths. One ag survey says farmers' perspectives on the farm economy are improving to the highest level since the beginning of the year. The Purdue Ag Barometer reaching up to 139. That survey of producer sentiment is the highest level since January 2017 and the second highest level since data collection began in October 2015. The research says the producers' attitude towards the ag economy has improved from a year ago when it was hovering in the mid-90s and low 100s. Purdue researchers say the rise is due to the optimism that prices could go higher because of deteriorating crop conditions due to weather, and the hope prices will rise higher because of it.
And in the July survey, we've seen a high share of producers expecting those higher commodity prices a year out from now. For corn, as an example, 39% of producers thought that prices would be higher a year from now. And this is the highest level of producers thinking that higher prices are possible.
Senior researcher David Winmar says attitudes also edged higher, primarily by the wheat crop, sending futures higher in June and July. Thousands of acres of wheat have already been baled for feed in drought-stricken areas of North Dakota. Many farmers are abandoning small grains because of the quality of the crops are not worth harvesting. Cliff Naylor of AgDay affiliate KFYR reports.
In 2016, this field produced a bumper crop of 40 to 50 bushels of wheat an acre. The small grain seeded in this ground this year won't be harvested.
It's worth more in the bale than in the bin this year.
After 1,000 acres of Dusty Kunkel's wheat were adjusted at 8 to 10 bushels by federal crop insurance, he baled it up as feed for his cows.
It'll get us through the winter, hopefully. It depends on how rough the winter is. We had a winter like last year. Now we're probably not going to have enough.
Crop scouts with the Wheat Quality Tour stopped at Jim Bam's farm last week. They saw lots of fields in southwest and south central North Dakota that won't be combined.
They were determining around 40% of the acres, wheat acres, were baled up.
Bam isn't going to bale his wheat, even though he's only expecting to average 10 to 20 bushels an acre.
It's not great, but I am going to run the combine over it. I decided I had enough hay for the cows that I have.
Kunkel says despite baling all his wheat and barley, he's still selling 10 to 12 cows a week.
I hope that we can quit selling cows pretty soon, but if it doesn't rain, we're just going to keep thinning the cow herd out week by week.
Other severe droughts have forced North Dakota farmers to cut a substantial percentage of small grains for feed. In 1988, 23% of the state's wheat acres were abandoned. This year, it's estimated that 10 to 15% of the crop could end up being baled. I'm Cliff Naylor, reporting for Ag Day.
The most recent crop report rates 44% of North Dakota spring wheat as poor to very poor, 25% is good, just 4% is excellent. Likewise, range and pasture conditions offer little to ranchers in the northern tier states. USDA's crop progress report shows 78% of range and pasture in North Dakota is poor to very poor. 71% of South Dakota and 60% of Montana grazing gets those poor marks. A Michigan-based relief organization that shipped this hay to Texas and Kansas after the wildfires in March is now stepping up to help drought-stricken North Dakota. The group is called Ag Community Relief. The North Dakota Department of Agriculture says the Michigan group contacted them about hay donations. The hay will be shipped later this month. The Ag Department is setting up a hay lottery for eligible producers in North Dakota. For those who wish to enter the lottery, they need to register online. The Ag Department also set up a hotline for others who wish to make a donation. The number is on your screen. We'll repeat this information at the end of the show. We heard about the wheat crop in North Dakota. Now let's check out conditions in South Dakota. Mike Hoffman joins us now with more. Mike?
Thanks, Betsy. Louis Nigg in Peaver, South Dakota, sending us a photo of the winter wheat crop. He says the wheat is not poor out in his area. He has a very good crop at 81 bushels per acre. Louis credits a good crop with a great start last fall and a cool June. Yet Louis is hearing of spring wheat tallying around 60 bushels per acre elsewhere. And Nick Ehlers in Tipton, Iowa, sending us a photo of the soybean crop in the area. Nick says the crop condition is good in that part of the country. USDA says 60% of Iowa's soybean crop is rated good to excellent. And taking a look at the root zone moisture, we'll take a closer look at this because there have been some big changes, but boy, it's that dry area in the mid-Mississippi Valley kind of a concern. I'll have your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
This is Machinery Pete, inviting you to check out my new website, machinerypete.com. Offering farmers tens of thousands of used equipment listings to search, let Machinery Pete help you find and value your next piece of used equipment.
The EPA kicked off its public comment period with a hearing in Washington to listen to data, views, and arguments over the renewable fuel standard levels for 2018 and 2019. This comes during a time when the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia struck down the EPA's methods, saying the agency erred in its interpretation called inactive domestic supplies. The agency used 2014 through 2016. Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer says some lawmakers will use the court verdict to try to get Congress to mandate the levels like they did in the past.
Some lawmakers will definitely use it. So that's going to give the ammo to those lawmakers and groups in the refining industry, et cetera, some in the refining industry, who want to reform the renewable fuel standard. I think there are still high hurdles to do that because of what we've seen in this Congress. Their inability to get anything.
We'll continue our conversation on wheat next in agribusiness. In News from the Packer, we check on this year's potato crop in Idaho. And bacon demand is sizzling hot right now. We'll see how one scientist wants to keep the market strong.
Are you a game changer? Know someone who is? Chevron is searching for those people that have made an impact on the industry. Share your nominee at chevrondello.com/gamechangers. Dello, let's go further.
Let's head now to the CME floor for some comments on the markets.
Soybean market was sharply lower here on Tuesday. We had a couple of pieces of bearish information this week. On Monday afternoon, the USDA released their weekly crop progress report. They told us that the crop actually improved week over week, which was not what was expected. The crop now rated 59% good to excellent, up from 57% the previous week. That's also kind of a contra-seasonal improvement. You know, usually we see corn and soybean ratings deteriorate as we move closer to harvest, and we saw the opposite of that this week in the bean market. So that kind of helped to spur some of the selling pressure, I believe. Secondly, and maybe more importantly, the weather forecast for the first part of August here looks very, very favorable. We've got some cooler temperatures coming into the Corn Belt. We've got plenty of rain. It looks like the vast majority of U.S. soybean growing areas are going to see anywhere from 1 inch to 1.5 inches of rainfall over the next 10 days. The live cattle market was mixed to a little bit higher here on Tuesday after trading into some fresh multi-month lows during the last couple of days. The board's really been under some pressure here. We had a bearish cattle on feed report a couple of weeks ago that kind of spurred some selling pressure. So we've got these August futures down near that 112 to 113 area. That's the lowest we've been in quite a while. Again, Joe Vaklavik from CME Group here in Chicago.
The wheat tour is now over in the northern plains. Could the market still move because of it? Tyne Morgan discusses.
Here now is Sue Martin. Sue, you know, we're coming off of the wheat tour where we took a hard look at the spring wheat, and we knew there were issues, right? I mean, we've had drought. Yes. We knew there were issues, but yields could be the lowest in a decade. Does the market have that priced in?
Well, I think we priced a chunk of that, and that's how we got September KC or Minneapolis wheat up to what we call a technical wave 4. That's kind of like the brick wall of China, and it did. It stopped the market like an 8-day clock. We've fallen back, and we're getting a good corrective pullback. The market could turn around and surprise us with one more rally making higher highs for a lead contract, which was 816 3/4. We could go to 842, which happens to be on a lead contract of wave 4 also, and yet not take out the September high and fail. I think the market's going to move up, but be massaging. KC wheat only reached a wave 2 when it got up to around that 569 area. There's room for this market to move. But the bottom line here is that the trade, the bear, is still looking at the stocks, the old crop stocks that we've got. But these are changing. Futures are the future. And we are changing not only domestically in our stocks, we're changing around the world. You've got problems in France, problems in Ukraine, problems in Spain. Australia is a big one. We're changing everything. You look at India, and they've had some pretty decent weather this year compared to last year. Their monsoons aren't totally equal, but they're pretty close. And yet India, who normally would be an exporter of wheat, is going to be an importer. Things are changing, and we're going to it. But there's one more kicker here. If you look at the tax plan that President Trump has, and he wants to lower taxes. Well, it's not only important for corporations, but it's important for food and food demand, because as that GDP, they're trying to get the GDP growth up to around 3%. You get corporations getting more money, all of a sudden they can now afford to give some pay raises. More money in people's hands means they'll be able to spend it, not on just a cell phone, they'll go spend it on food. So I think overall there's just a lot of things that are gelling right now, and we're seeing a shift starting out of stocks, moving more so into commodities, and there's brokerages out there even trying to convince people to use stocks, the money off of stocks, to borrow money on. I don't like hearing that one, but I think we're making a big shift.
All right, thanks, Sue. We appreciate it. Stay with us. We have more Ag Day when we come back.
Talk markets one-on-one with Sue Martin. Call Ag and Investment Services toll-free at 1-800-527-0051 or visit her website, www.futurescashinfo.com.
Welcome back to Ag Day with meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, we take a look at the root zone moisture map. Which areas are improving here?
Well, the western plains, the high plains, appear to have gotten a little bit better in most areas since last week. Now, don't get me wrong, there are still some dry areas out there, North Dakota especially, but some of those high plain sections, but boy, did it get wetter. Eastern Colorado, western portions of Kansas. It has stayed dry in right the heart of the Corn Belt. Southeastern Iowa, northeastern Missouri, western Illinois continued to be wet over northern Illinois into many parts of Indiana, and it has dried out some in the Carolinas and also in northern Minnesota. Now this changes rapidly, as you've seen over the past several months since we've been using this root zone moisture map. It's really taken from space by the satellites, and it gets it right, and we're very happy with that product right now. Let's hope the weather turns out and improves some of those areas. Look at all the rain right now, that area of low pressure over Texas. The remnants of Emily moving out into the Atlantic should not be a big concern. That will continue to move northeast. High pressure, although there will be some spotty activity underneath the high over the eastern portions of the country. Most of it's going to be around that area of low pressure in southeastern Texas later today, and also over the Dakotas, which could be some good news for some of those dry areas up that way. This is a strong cold front. We've been talking about this for the past 2 or 3 days, and that will bring a shot of really chilly air for August for the northern plains, and that's going to spread southeastward from there. Heading through the day tomorrow, showers and thunderstorms over Minnesota, which again is good news. That's one of the spots I talked about is drying out over into parts of the western Great Lakes as well, and along the Gulf Coast. Those are the main areas of moisture. You can see over the past 24 hours there's been some decent amounts. Parts of Texas will add to that, and other parts of Texas over the next 36 hours. Florida continues to get a fair amount of rain from time to time, and you can see that area kind of moving through the northern plains into the western Great Lakes. Temperatures, look at that, 80s everywhere. No 90s or very few 90s showing up all the way down to the Gulf Coast, but boy is it hot. Lots of 90s and triple digits in the far western states. Low temperatures tonight going to drop into the 50s in the northwestern plains, still 60s and 70s, central Mississippi Valley. Look at the highs tomorrow, though. Only in the 60s as far south as Omaha, Nebraska. That is chilly for this time of the year. Still typically warm farther southeast. That's all because of this jet stream. Watch this really sharp trough there dig into the Great Lakes for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That means that chilly air is going to come eastward for 2 or 3 days, and then it tries to warm up a little bit, although the trough's still trying to dig in again by the middle of next week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading out to Chico, California, sunny and extremely hot, high 109. Taking a look at Fremont, Nebraska, partly sunny, rather warm, high of 86. And finally, Bowling Green, Kentucky, warm and humid, a thunder shower in some areas, high of 87.
Next, we look at potato production in Idaho, which is a tale of two taters when it comes to the weather. Plus, scientists are looking at ways to prevent food waste and give bacon a little more shelf life.
Deciding whether to sell your old equipment? Well, Machinery Pete's Pick of the Week lets you stay informed on current market prices, allowing you to set the best possible price for your equipment. Text Pete 6 to 31313 to get started.
Idaho potato producers are poised to see plentiful potatoes this fall, but the oversupply won't help depress prices. USDA NASS says 93% of Idaho's potatoes are rated good to excellent. None are considered poor to very poor. While high, that's off last year's high score of 98% good to excellent at this time. Producers near Pocatello, Idaho rely on snowpack to irrigate most of their potatoes every year. And with adequate snow this winter, farmers are not worried about running out of irrigation water this year. But it's that snow that also pushed back planting, creating a smaller growing season for potatoes, which could ultimately eat into yields.
It's come along good. It's a good crop. It's not. Last year was a little bit above normal. We had a little longer growing season. This year started just a little bit later. But the potatoes, the heat has come on. They're growing really well, and it's going to be a good crop.
Area growers say potato prices are struggling this year. Some growers even resorting to growing more hay and other crops to offset the income. A plant disease is threatening avocado crops on both sides of the country. University of Florida researchers have been seeking solutions to the problem of laurel wilt. The pathogen threatens Florida's $100 million a year avocado industry. This week, Florida researchers are sharing their knowledge with their counterparts in California. California grows 90% of avocados in this country. Experts from Florida's Institute of Food and Ag Sciences have pinpointed 14 beetles that may infect avocado trees, but they're trying to determine which one is doing the most damage. Still to come, we'll look at some very important research, especially for bacon lovers in the country, is next.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit Kubota.com today.
In our newsroom, we're taking a stand. Bacon is pretty darn perfect just the way it is. And it's a darn shame if for some strange reason it goes uneaten. Bacon is finding its way onto more and more plates than ever before, no matter the time of day. With supplies of pork belly at an all-time low, bacon lovers are seeing skyrocketing prices with the shortage. Kansas State researcher Terry Hauser is working on a method to maximize the shelf life of bacon, especially for restaurants. He wants to minimize the amount of oxidation that occurs after bacon has been frozen and shipped out to retailers.
Oxidation, that's basically the fat breaking down due to the presence of oxygen in the atmosphere. And so that leads to a lot of off flavors and a lot of customer dissatisfaction with the product. So we want to keep that. We want to keep most meat products oxidatively stable, and so we don't want that oxidative deterioration that will occur.
Hauser is including antioxidants through the bacon curing process, is using both commercial and natural curing processes. And then the meat is smoked. He hopes to identify the best strategy for delaying the onset of oxidation. Well, as we mentioned earlier, the North Dakota Department of Ag has set up a lottery system for producers needing hay. Ranchers must register online through the North Dakota Ag Department website. And for those wishing to make a donation of hay, you can call this number, 701-425-8454. That's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. For Tyne Morgan and Mike Hoffman, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Have a great day.
Ag Day is powered by Ram Trucks, America's longest-lasting pickups.